go back to retail for a second because, I always get conflicting reports every time I, open up something new. Brick and mortar and retail, although it's still around, it's not going to recover from the COVID days. And then I read the next article and they're like, actually, it's back and better than ever. You have to just look at it in a kind of a different way. You tell me your thoughts. I'm curious to find out on the future of retail. Where do you think that's headed?
Yeah, I feel like I see those type of conflicting articles all the time, and I always like even when I'm working with brands, I try and put myself back into the I am a consumer. I personally love to shop online, in store, doesn't matter. I am a shopper, and I would say somewhere in between, I don't think it's gonna die completely. Like we were talking about the human connection piece, people are always gonna still want that. I think also for certain products, in store does work, and that's why I think that we're gonna see how's retail gonna evolve like everything else evolves in the world, right? So, I personally love how Firework works with retailers because, if we're working with a retailer that has working with 150 brands, all of a sudden that retailer can bring all 150 of those brands content in. So it's like an ecosystem, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of changes in retail, and I'm excited to see how it evolves. And I don't think it's going extinct.
Hello, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Chief Networking Officer at PIMS, and welcome to our second season of Minutes with Mike. Now in my 33rd year at PIMS, I've had the privilege of partnering with companies both large and small, supporting their PR and marketing through customized fulfillment and distribution that delivers measurable impact on their brand perception, boosts positive affinity, and fuels their overall brand performance. And throughout my career, I've had the chance to work alongside many talented folks. This is their story. On this show, we'll sit down with some of the world's top marketing and business thought leaders to learn more about their success, how they got there, how marketing helped them achieve their goals, what strategies they used, and what inspires them. Please join me on this journey as we learn from those who are changing the way we think about business. So sit back, enjoy. You're listening to Minutes with Mike. All right, welcome everybody to the latest episode of Minutes with Mike. I'm Mike Ryan, and our guest today is the one and only Jamie Aspen. Jamie, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mike. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
We're so excited. Before we jump in, I was thinking about this before we went on air here, and I'm trying to think of the show. We met, here's my perspective of how we met. We went to this cool trade show, Dave Silbergleit and I, and anybody that's gone to a trade show knows before the trade show and after the trade show, and sometimes during the trade show, there are always these cool networking opportunities, right? And depending on where it is and when it is, you get a huge crowd or nobody shows up. In this case, it was a huge crowd, such a huge crowd that there was a line at the elevator bank to get in. So we knew it was the place to be. So I get in and I akin it to like being in a casino. When you walk in a casino, if you're wondering what table to go to, you always listen for the team that screams the loudest, and you're like, "Let's go over there." It's usually craps, but that's where you go, where the excitement is. So in this case, we're in this room, and I hear this little cluster of people laughing and talking about stuff. So I'm purposely backing up into that area, and it's you and four or five other gals talking about, I don't know what you were talking about, but it was awesome. And I just kind of invited myself in there. But what show was that? It was in Vegas.
Was it Cosmoprof?
Yes, you're right. Yeah, actually, it was. You're right.
Yeah, and it was my first Cosmoprof, so meeting you and fellow women I was surrounded with at the happy hour was a very warm welcome to my first show, so,
There you go. And the beauty part of those networking things too is you get to have a drink or whatever, and then the next day or the next morning in the show, you inevitably run into each other. So it's a very nice icebreaker. Anyway, let's get into you. So tell me about Jamie Aspen. Like, how did it all start? Where are you from? Where did you develop this interest in what you're doing now? Let's hear about you.
yeah, so I'm actually from Omaha, Nebraska, which is usually my fun fact when going around a room because most of the time people say that they've driven through. Omaha, Nebraska is a drive-through state, or city, excuse me. But yeah, so I got my ticket out of Omaha to go to University of Arizona. I studied business management at Eller Business School at U of A. So I was super grateful to leave Omaha, even though I'm very proud to be from there. And then, all my friends, all my colleagues were not from the Midwest, they were from the West Coast and things like that, so I only applied to jobs in Southern California post-college, and then I got started actually in the HR technology space for 5 years, which is pretty crazy just based on where I'm at today.
So you get started in that, but how did, like, of course, I'm just a little bit older than you, but like, how did it start? Because like when I was coming through college, there was certainly no such thing as influencers. There was no online. There was none of this stuff. So I sort of developed the love for what we do here as it grew. Like, how did it start with you? Like, were you heavily online when you were coming through high school and college? Was there one particular thing that kind of spurred your interest? Like, what got you into that whole tech world? Did you want to go into HR and then it sort of developed into tech? How did that go?
Yeah, I think I always was interested in sales, like any form of sales. And at the time, I didn't know what industries meant, like how involved you would have to be. Looking back, I don't think that I'm meant for the human resources space, but I really enjoy the tech space. So I think it was a great foot in the door. And we worked with super cool clients, which is actually how I got to where I am today, because Firework was a client of my HR tech company. So it's funny how the world works in that way.
You have told me before, and I have certainly seen the company and know a lot about how the company ticking. But give us your elevator pitch. What is Firework? What do you guys do, and what do you do there specifically?
Yeah, so Firework is the world's largest video commerce platform. So what that means is we're kind of bridging the gap between an in-store shopping experience and an online shopping experience through shoppable video. So being able to bring the video experience that people have grown accustomed to on social media, being able to bring that experience to the website where people are making their actual purchases, and then adding a call to action, adding a product card, being able to actually shop within a video. That's really where we see the power. Video is king today. So, and I think it's like 94% of people are still making their final purchase on the D2C website versus social media. So, it's kind of bridging the gap between the two worlds. And I am in brand partnerships or sales. So I work with a lot of beauty and wellness brands, but really we work with all different verticals. So I'm really just helping them implement video commerce onto their website.
I am by no means a tech savvy whatsoever. Just setting up the podcast takes forever to do that. Anyway, talk to me about the way technology has entered into this marketplace, right? So Chat GPT and TikTok Shop and all the stuff that didn't exist not too long ago is kind of jumping in and taking over. AI technology as a whole is really, you know, no longer are we having discussions about like if or when it, but rather how far will this go, right? Give me your feedback on how you feel about it. Like, how does ChatGPT enter your everyday? How does Firework and AI technology sort of go hand in hand, work together? And then from there, like, what do you think? Like, where do you think it's headed? Where's it going?
Yeah, so couple parts there. I feel like even just going back to us meeting in conferences, like that's the biggest buzzword, right? That's all we hear is like AI, AI, AI. And it's like obviously it can help our lives so much. Like for me, ChatGPT is my email reader. Like it just proofreading everything for me to make sure that saves me time because pre ChatGPT, I'm literally reading an email 20 times before I'm sending it because I don't want to ever come off as like a bad writer or saying something wrong. Typos. I hate getting typos in emails. Yeah, so that just helps so much. Like being able to those like tasks that you have to do every day. I think it really helps. I should be way more techie for working at a tech company. I feel like I have like the base layer knowledge down and our technology is super super easy from a user experience standpoint. So, I've got our technology down and I've got ChatGPT down, but I think really just figuring out like which AI works for you is kind of the biggest thing because I mean, it's too much. Like it for me, like the thought of it is too much. There's too many tools out there. Every day I'm hearing about like 10 new tools that's going to just enhance my workday and help me sell better. And I think that kind of over the next couple of years, we're going to maybe take a step back and people are going to crave that like human authenticity experience because we jump too far, in my opinion. So
With this new technology, nobody wants to be left out, right? They don't want to be the one that isn't along for the ride. But I think you hit on something really, really telling is, we are used to in this most recent world that we live in the space that we occupy, we're used to having these types of things support like if you're a salesperson and it's necessary and it works, but nothing takes place of that sort of face to face. I mean, we talk about that many times at PIMS, how sort of face to face meetings or talking to folks away, unplugging the technology really benefits you tenfold, right? Like you go to a client, you take them to lunch, you go out for breakfast, whatever it is, but you get to know a little bit about the person. Nice mug, nice placement, beautifully done. Oh, and what a beautiful shirt. Got to mention that. Well done, Jamie. Points for you there. Long story short, people still want to have that opportunity to connect one on one. And I think you're right. It's gone so fast and so quick. Maybe it's time for a little reset. Not unplugging it altogether and not doing away with it, but wouldn't it be nice to do this portion of it face to face, or let's tone down all this, AI activity and get to the business at hand. Right before you came on, I got and just rang now 2 minutes ago, no less than 3 spam calls from sort of AI bot that put that together. And now I'm getting spam text.
yep, the text is getting out of hand. Also, I just feel like with email, like sales emails, like they want you to use, the tools are great. We all need sales tools in order to do outreach and things like that. But I just feel like the emails that are written by AI, obviously that's going to help me automate, I'm going to be able to get more outreach done, but people can tell. People can tell when it's an AI email versus when you take
Totally.
15 minutes out of your day to add a little bit of your own personality in there, add a news update or something that's gonna provide value, and I've kind of taken a step back because I was using AI a lot for outreach in order to, make sure I'm getting the output numbers that I'd like, but I was seeing better results when I was back sending personalized emails. Maybe it takes longer, but, it's just gonna get me better results.
Shifting gears back to firework for a second. So the the video and interactive content is becoming more and more a big part of the whole e-commerce space. And I think what I'm alluding to is this whole notion of TikTok shop, right? I went to an event not too long ago where they had a whole panel discussion on TikTok shop, right? And this was right when the administrations were rolling over and the Trump administration was like, we're going to get out of TikTok. And everybody was in a slight panic about A, what am I going to do? And B, what's the next thing I can go to? Because I have this, we don't have retail. We have this. This is how it works. Maybe you could talk a little bit to that on how that at least the video portion of it adds to the exposure or adds to the content becoming more centralized.
Yeah, I think for us, that's just really proving that this video live shopping, it works, right? I know that TikTok makes it kind of difficult for brands to even enter, to even get on their marketplace. So that's kind of one of the downsides, I would say, as well as, some of the regulations they have, the fear of it always being gone. Just you talking about that time frame. I remember the articles coming out that people were paying like $50,000 for phones that had TikTok download on
No,
it.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, because people I mean, yeah, hectic. That's just hectic behavior. I think that also, so using Fireworks platform, we're actually able to be streaming on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, like all at the same time as you're going live on your website. So I think that's also just how we can collaborate and work with all the different platforms as well.
I'm gonna ask you about the whole shopping experience in a second, but before I forget, I wanted to ask you about analytics and data, right? So we work with, the Creator IQ of the world and Nielsen IQ of the world that develop and capture these analytics to develop programs, right? And with their clientele. What's your thoughts on marketing teams developing their strategies around these numbers, around the information that's given back to them from these organizations that make their bread and butter by, you know, creating these programs of folks to send out. Do you feel like people are all in on that and they just kind of almost go blindly, whatever, and are led by the numbers? Do you think it's the complete opposite where people listen to that, but they really just go with their gut and kind of go down this path? Or do you think it's a mix of the two? I'm curious to hear your feedback.
Yeah, I think every company has a different strategy and they have a different focus on the data. I think that the data is a great tool to help build the strategy. I don't know if it should be the sole focus on, everything having to do with the what the marketing team's doing. But for example, at Firework, we're extremely data driven. Being able to see how these videos and specific content is performing, the performance means how is it resonating with the customer, right? So that's invaluable, right? Because if an unboxing video is leading to 5 times the conversion and maybe a storytelling type video, no one's clicking on it, no one's engaging, all of a sudden, content's an investment. So all of a sudden with that data, now you know where to go next with your content. I need to make more of unboxing videos, right? So I think that once again, that's just an example of how it can be used as a tool versus, the starting point.
Assume that one of the great things we were talking this morning internally here about video and the creation of video, and it almost seems like these larger brands are creating these videos in such a manner to give the appearance of hastily thrown together video phoned because they want to be kept in the know. They want to be hip, right? So Allie and Jamie are taking a video of whatever the shoes they're wearing, and they're doing this, heads are chopped off and the video's like scracky and the music's loud and obnoxious, whatever it is. But that's a trend that seems to be working because just like nobody's getting their news anymore from these traditional news outlets, people aren't getting exposure to fashion and beauty and wellness strictly through what they used to read, and now they're seeing in the news. They're turning to outlets that are creating this video content. Do you find that larger brands sometimes try to make it smaller in vision, and maybe the opposite too, like the smaller companies that are just new startups are trying to get as bold as, the larger brands? Do you see there's a sort of dichotomy in that?
I wouldn't say it has to do with the brand size. I mean, I talk content all day because that's the biggest focus right now, and most of the time, like, just speaking to these brands, it's daunting. It's too much just thinking about it as a whole, like, and the upkeep of it, right? You need to be constantly creating. With constantly creating becomes what are we gonna create? How are we gonna create that buzz? And it's daunting, even for me thinking about it. Like, it's just so large, and I think that kind of what you're seeing is just people trying to stand out in a way. But what we're really seeing and the feedback and advice we provide to our clients is that kind of back to this authenticity, right? Like, authenticity is what's working. You don't need a huge production crew and you don't need to pay an influencer $50,000. People want to see you, your brand, normal people that they can relate to, how they use the product, and whether that is Ali and I creating a video with a bunch of loud music in the back, maybe that's just how we're using the video and that's authentic to us and it works with whatever it is that we're showcasing. And also it's low production. You don't need to spend $1 million. Like, whip out your iPhone and do something fun.
How does, as part of your capabilities or services, do you create the actual, you're not coming up with the content, obviously, they're probably coming back to you about that, but are you guys sort of walking them through the steps about how to create the videos from the actual scripting and however it works? I'm naive to how it works, so tell me, how does it work?
Yeah, not to the actual scripting. A lot of times we'll provide, recommendations based off of other brands in the space, like, "Hey, we've seen this work." We do also have creative services, so we do have a studio in LA where we can help produce the actual content. So it really just depends on where people are at. Another thing we're pushing for with a lot of brands right now is actually called employee generated content. So we're saying like, okay, your sales associates are in 40 stores in the United States. When it's a little slow in there, why don't you have your employees do some content in the actual store, kind of utilizing your resources. And then the biggest thing is really just extending the life of the content once it's created, like using Firework to extend the life of the current content investment by bringing it to where your consumers are shopping.
So PIMS specializes in influencer marketing, right? We are getting these products from a point A to point B in such a way that we can customize each send, where a lot of the brands we work with and clients we work with have foundational support of warehousing and they can send out product, but it's like getting something through Amazon. It's a craft box where you're throwing stuff in. With us, there's the customization of size matching and different types of shade matching for makeup, right down to handwritten note cards, ribbon tying, all that sort of stuff. Our next logical step is, now that we've been working, we started out originally working with PR and marketing firms, and then we went to the brands themselves. We're kind of looking at the creators now as like almost the next step in brands, right? Like, because, and I'm going to ask you about your thoughts on retail and where that's headed. With these creators, I'm going to make this mouse pad in my house and I'm going to create a video with video content that brings you right to my TikTok shop so you can order it. And I'm going to hopefully use PIMS to do all the packing and shipping of those items out. But like, how do you guys tie into this? Have you guys looked at the creators as like sort of a new source of capability that you would go into? Is it something that's sort of that you've already tried and did or didn't work? Like, where do you see those guys fitting in?
Yeah. Well, I love that that's the direction you're taking. And I do remember our conversations from, just all the conferences. And I think that the packaging is, like, something so important that's not spoken about. Because even just as a consumer, when I think about it now, like, after meeting you, when I open my package, I'm like, "Hmm, does this make me feel special or does it not?" Because it does matter, right? Like, or if they're giving a little extra thing that, maybe a bag that I'm gonna be able to use or a sticker. I mean, even a sticker. It makes you feel just, like, special, part of the community. We have worked with creators in the past. I wouldn't say it didn't work, it wasn't the direction that we were headed, and just kinda how I mentioned the employee-driven content, like, we are trying to push for that, like, authentic content, using your own resources, and just trying to explain to brands, like, whether they're small or big, that you don't necessarily need to hire an influencer in order to be successful. It's an option, it's an avenue, you can do it in addition, but just trying to also provide other options there.
Well said. Let's go back to retail for a second because, I always get conflicting reports every time I, open up something new. And of course, it depends on who the source of the information is. But some people are like, brick and mortar and retail, although it's still around, it's not going to recover from the COVID days. And then I read the next article and they're like, actually, it's back and better than ever. You have to just look at it in a kind of a different way. And again, like we've been talking about with these creators, they can create their own little retail outlet out of their living room without having to pay rent or develop space in that capacity. But you tell me your thoughts. I'm curious to find out on the future of retail. Where do you think that's headed?
Yeah, I feel like I see those type of conflicting articles all the time. And I always like, even when I'm working with brands, retail, whatever, I try and put myself back into like I am a consumer. I personally love to shop online, in store, doesn't matter. I am a shopper. And I always try and like put myself back into those shoes and look at it from, my perspective because I am who they're talking about. And I would say somewhere in between, I don't think it's gonna die completely. Like we were talking about the human connection piece, people are always gonna still want that. I think also for certain products, in store does work, and that's why I think that we're gonna see how's retail gonna evolve like everything else evolves in the world, right? So, I personally love how Firework works with retailers because, if we're working with a retailer that has working with 150 brands, all of a sudden that retailer can bring all 150 of those brands content in. So it's like an ecosystem, right? So I think we're gonna see a lot of changes in retail, and I'm excited to see how it evolves, and I don't think it's going extinct.
PIMS is a member of the CEW, the Cosmetic Executive Women Organization, and they believe, as we do, in women empowerment, right? We have the president of PIMS is a woman, and she does a fabulous job. Jamie, I know you do a fantastic job too. Tell me about who in your life inspired you when you were younger to you both have similar personalities in the sense that you're very articulate, you're very well spoken, you're very easy to have a discussion with, and that's not something that you're born with. You have to develop that. Somebody helped you develop that along the way, and I'm curious as to who you would point to as somebody that really taught you the way of this is how you go get it. This is what we do. This is don't let them say no. Don't let them put you, pigeonhole you into a certain role.
I think I'm gonna also say my mom because I think that, as you're growing up, that is the most influential person in your life. The way my mom inspired me is maybe a little bit different, but she had me at 19 years old, so I kind of grew up with her. So I watched her start from modeling to being a marketing director at a dentist office to going into real estate. Like I just watched her like career progression in such an interesting way where I never obviously I didn't think about it while I was living at home, but looking back, I mean, she did a lot of pivots that just seemed so natural, and she's always had the mentality of, if it's not this, it's something better, and just never being worried about what the next step is gonna be and that it's just gonna, align really well, and I think that everybody can relate to that. Like, when you look back, looking at life in reverse, it all makes sense as to how you ended up where you are today, right? I would never think that I'd be on a Minutes with Mike if you'd asked me 5 years ago. So, I think it all ends up working out, and it's cool to see how everything unfolds and doing it with the utmost confidence.
You know, your mom grew up in an era, it's the same, they're probably around the same age as I am, and they grew up in an era in high school. I remember the girls lined up in a certain line and the guys lined up in a certain line to register for classes, and typing was offered to the girls. Not, it wasn't offered to me. And wood shop was offered to the guys. My wife didn't take wood shop, right? It was just assumed that guys were going to build stuff and tinker and do that sort of stuff. And women are, sort of secretarial. They're going to need to be able to type. Meanwhile, everybody should have been typing, right? Because now with the computers, it goes a long way to show you that these ladies, among millions who have also done the same thing, sort of took that, pulled the skin off and said, I'm going to reinvent myself and be successful in what I do. And when my daughter gets to the point, I'm going to show her exactly how to do it. And just knowing that I see that that's really paid off. So that's awesome. Jamie, if somebody's watching this and they're interested in talking to you more about firework or want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, probably, send me a message on LinkedIn, and would love to talk more about video commerce. I do love what I do, and just even having conversations like these is really fun for me.
Fabulous. Jamie Aspen, thank you so much for joining me. We're looking forward to seeing you at the next networking event. We run in similar circles, so I'm sure it will be in no time.
We do. Hopefully, it's back in Vegas. We'll see.
Thanks again.